Anthony Fantano, Playboy Cardi music review.
Hi everyone, Chartany Top Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of this new Playboy Cardi album, Music.
Okay.
Here we have a brand new LP.
Oh no, he's wearing the red button up. What's it called? Lumberjacks be wearing what these called? I forgot what he's called, but whenever he wears these, it usually doesn't mean like he giving a good score.
Rapper, songwriter,
from what I've seen,
demand artist,
from what I've seen,
hip hop's current it boy, Mr. Playboy Cardi, coming through with a project that is almost 5 years in the making. Music, really one of the most highly anticipated releases in recent memory, and you know, you do have to give it to those Cardi fans. Their devotion to him may borderline on disturbing sometimes, but they're at least patient enough to have stuck with him while this record came together.
If he didn't
certainly many fan bases would have moved on at this point, having waited so many years, especially with so many copycat artists these days flooding the zone with their own mid to respectable takes on Cardi's trademark sound. The aggressive, distorted, cycling, trippy beats he tends to favor, his experimental approach to flows and vocal inflections, the dark, elusive, and mysterious ways in which he presents himself too. All of which he slowly developed after having blown up off of his self-titled mixtape back in 2017. But even with Cardi's last official full-length album being almost...
Look at him, bro. Look at what he was at,
his self-titled mixtape back...
Look at this, bro. Like, damn near like a completely new oh, y'all can't see, my bad. But like a completely new person, dog. This is crazy. Like, if you showed a picture, 2017 Playboy Cardi and 2025 Playboy Cardi, like, you would be like, that's the same person? What? No way. I don't believe you.
Back in 2017. But even with Cardi's last official full-length album being almost 5 years old at this point, his many imitators haven't even come close to lapping him in terms of relevancy. And that is despite a very frustrated fan base being subjected to countless leaks, teases, album title changes, singles, pushbacks, weak features, and for some reason,
who remember Molly World?
But then all of a sudden,
that's a tough picture. That's
Music
a tough
here, which was just announced in a flash last week. Dropped the following Friday, and now it's here. And despite there having been so much time for this project to incubate effectively, it still sounds so rushed and inconsistent. And I mean, in some ways, not much has really changed since the release of Cardi's last record.
I mean, like, I will say, with there's now a new version, so he probably got to do like another review in like 5 years. But there is another version. Y'all know, what is it? Pop Out, the outro of Pop Out was supposed to lead into Evil Jordan, but he messed up the track list. No, don't say his team. He messed it up, okay? He waited until 8 a.m. to drop it.
A lot of red in 2020.
That's on him.
Because, and I know many would disagree with this, that album in its own right was a pretty inconsistent, disjointed project. I mean, among its 24 songs, there really was no through line guiding all of the tracks overall. I mean, a majority of the tracks on this thing didn't even sound mixed and mastered the same, as quite a few were actually kind of quite painful to listen to. By comparison, I will say the overall mix job on Music here is slightly better.
Music
Even Cocaine
or
Nose,
Whole Lotta
which
Red?
sounds like an ultra-distorted throwback to the Whole Lotta Red era, with looped metal guitar licks and all. The track Opium Baby, I would say, sort of feels like it could have come from that same album too, to an extent. And yeah, throughout the rest of the album, there are some familiar Cardi-isms here and there, like the track Olympian sounds like something that could have been one of the synthier cuts to land on his 2017 Die Lit album. That is, if it were sort of updated with his throatier, froggier
you mean Opium Baby?
That he's been kind of favoring.
He said Opium Baby?
But honestly, tracks like these are more the exception than the rule. In this very hefty 30-song track list, whose worst moments sound near effortless and
music's busiest nerd.
And look, I know there are some hype standouts and singles and big features in this album that have been a huge point of discussion around this album for sure, but we cannot allow those.
How does he feel about Uzi having his own track?
To 100% dictate all the discourse around this album. Because again, there are 30 songs on this project.
There's a lot of songs.
They all collectively contribute to this album's overall quality. And looking at this project as a whole, I feel like I'm pulling up the floorboards on a house and just like seeing termites just devastating all of the wood.
But I don't think you're supposed to look at it like that.
Because once again, like with Whole Lotta Red, and that album was like packed with all that vamp shit and so on and so forth. With music, I just don't really feel like there's a lot of vision pulling these songs together, because they're either so short and directionless and underdeveloped that their inclusion on this album is insulting, or I'm just left feeling like Cardi and company could have just done more with the track. We Need All the Vibes, for example, is a track that just kind of sounds like an old...
Hold on, you're not about to sneak that in.
Just done more with...
This is me using an AI, JK.
A track. We Need All the Vibes, for example, is a track that just kind of sounds like an old, stale, Young Thug summer jam that was sitting in the vault, and Playboi Carti just like contributed a couple bars to the second half of it, and that's it. There's also Rather Lie featuring The Weeknd, which kind of sounds like the other side of a coin we already caught wind of from Timeless on Abel's
They probably made it at the same time.
Album. It's kind of like they came up with two variations on the same song idea, and I think Carti got the weaker of the two variations here. There's Twin Trim featuring Lil Uzi Vert as well, which this track doesn't even have a Carti verse on it. It just kind of seems like a bunch of synths and grooves from the Lil Uzi Vert versus the World era, but it's somehow landing on this album for some reason. I've seen it described as an interlude, but like, an interlude from what to what? Because it just kind of sounds like one more ungroomed random song in a sea of other ungroomed random songs. And this isn't even the worst Uzi Vert track on the record. There's also the song Jumpin', which feels like one of those tracks that you get on a posthumous record after a rapper has passed away and a label tasks 2 or 3 producers with like assembling a track out of a leftover verse or something that was just like in the vault. Just chop a few lines together, get them all punched in, and
that doesn't take away how good it is.
After that, just repeat a few so that it kind of makes a refrain or a chorus, and just extend it out so it feels like a song. It's like I'm hearing a Frankenstein monster being assembled of a bunch of different random lines rather than a full complete verse. And of course, filling in the gaps here and there, we have Swamp Izzo, who is screaming all over this record, and I will mention again a little bit later into the review. But yeah, from here we have more tracks on the record that sound
I'm opening up to DJ Swamp,
but just shouldn't be. Like Toxic featuring Skepta, who is obviously a very interesting feature inclusion for this record, but the song that he's on just kind of trails right off as soon as he appears. The songs Walk, Overly, and This One Got It sound like short, incomplete Future
What about
demos.
Like Weezy?
Meanwhile, the track Charge Dem Josephi actually does have Future on it, and I don't think I've ever heard a song with this much star power, because it does have Future, it does have Cardi, it has Travis Scott on it as well. Yeah, all those names, and yet the whole thing sounds like it was produced and assembled on a moldy potato. We also have other tracks like Fine Shit as well as Philly, which also features Travis Scott, and these are more tracks that feel less like songs and more like rough sketches of songs, because I mean, as much as Travis and Future and Thugger and Kanye may obviously be very big influences on his sound and his style, he very much lacks the follow-through to really pull together a sound and a song and a vision in the way that they have in the past. Like, we are not talking about Utopia or DS2 or Jeffrey levels of focus here. Like, if anything, we're more in like that Dawn to 2 ballpark, which, mind you, I do think there is a certain appeal
I didn't listen to that. Was it bad?
Most weird,
I heard
wild,
it was bad.
and exciting tracks this album has to offer. Like on the opening track, Pop Out, where Cardi sounds absolutely insane, with production that features all of these hyper distorted ringing synthesizers, splashing pieces of percussion, and also Cardi's raspy, screamed verses and choruses to Pop Out, Pop Out. He's absolutely out of control on this track and does a great job of channeling this pure visceral energy when he wants
There's
to.
some shit
The following
you should
track,
like.
Crush, I thought was also a highlight, and while this one may not necessarily be like a genius feat of songwriting, it does feature a crazy combination of disparate sounds that make for a pretty unique experience, with Cardi's whispery flows, these sliding Game Boy type lead synth melodies, grand gospel style choruses, very rigid, almost industrial type hip-hop beats, some very aggressive 808s too. It's total dystopian chaos. Now compare that
what's
to
Anthony
K-pop,
Fantano's
which the
favorite
album flows
album?
into immediately after, and with that track's more skeletal layers, the atmospheric synthesizers, Cardi's
he ain't talk
squeaky
about like
vocal
Wheezy.
delivery. I mean, the song is passably eerie, but it just doesn't really feel like
Wheezy,
it's
one of my
bringing
favorites.
that much to the table, especially on this very abrupt ending. Compare that to the following Evil Jordan, which I do think on some level is a step up, sure, as Cardi's performance on the mic actually does sound organic rather than piece together his illusions to being in like his rock star emo phase right now are cute. The beat actually builds up some kind of momentum on the groove side. The hype swamp Izzo ad-libs are very aggressive and attention grabbing, and there's something about that stuttering, repeating, shrill little synth line that stands out among all the other beats here too. But beyond that, I feel like once again with this cut we are just overselling what is actually being delivered to us here. Because while yes, it is
this
slightly
track been
weirder
released
than the average track you'll get out there in the mainstream these days, is it substantively interesting? Not really. And is it detailed and layered enough to warrant repeating?
See,
all
here
that
we go.
many
He just
times?
wants everything to be
absolutely
lyrical,
not.
miracle,
However,
spiritual. You don't go to Playboy Cardi to lyrical, spiritual, the deep dive in the lyrics. Okay, what song have you listened to by Cardi where he lyrically like, oh my god? He said he buys mama a house off the mumbling stuff, bro. Come on.
We're supposed to be talking about the highlights on the album. There is Mojo Jojo, which is a kind of Kendrick Lamar highlight, where Kenny mostly provides ad-libs on the track. And
Cardi,
a very
my
odd
evil
intro,
twin.
Where he's like almost
y'all gonna see
worshiping
me
Cardi in
how
a weird
I see
way.
y'all.
Oh yeah, I need that Cardi,
glass.
my favorite kind of Cardi, that alien Cardi. I need that
This is
Cardi,
how I see you guys.
Ooh.
This
the
is my
chemistry
world.
between both of them on the track is very odd and forced. It's like Kendrick is trying to create that weird Baby Keem kooky crossover type of energy, but I just don't really feel like, creatively speaking, he has that sort of rapport with Cardi. It doesn't work in the same way on this track, especially with Cardi taking himself
now, what about
seriously
Good
as
Credit?
he does.
His favorite track probably Good
another
Credit.
track on the record that features Kendrick Lamar, more Kendrick Lamar, frankly. And it's kind of like we're being subjected to one of his smoother ballad type cuts over a beat that sounds lifted straight out of the Drake Nothing Was the Same era, which I think Cardi's very spotty, inconsistent flows fail to dominate the space of. But yeah, as far as Kendrick's contribution on this track goes, it's less than stellar. I feel like he's dropped at least several very key and impressive tracks in a similar style as of late.
Dang,
be it
he really
Luther
criticizing
or 30 for
Kendrick.
30.
I'm
And
surprised.
I feel like those tracks would have had to have been just absolutely disappointing crud for me to think of this track more than twice after I'm done recording this review. There's also this track more than just absolutely disappointing crud for me to think of this track more than twice after I'm done recording this review. There's also good credit too as far as Kendrick Lamar features are concerned on this project. On this one, Kendrick is at least more in his rap bag, actually delivering a verse. It's the most impressive of the three tracks here that I'm mentioning. There's a great key change in the cut as well.
His favorite
but I
track,
feel like
Pop
once
Out
again,
and
Kendrick
Crush.
is operating at a lower gear than usual and almost trying to match Cardi's super inconsistent flow style, allowing for the beat and the ad-libs to kind of take over and interrupt him at points. The whole thing sort of feels like a, straight up flex, maybe an extension to one degree or another of the recent victory lap he's been on post his Drake beef.
Understand how he listens to
until
music.
He starts kind of going on about Playboy Cardi being his evil twin, which not only feels weird because on some level it is kind of odd and hypocritical of Kendrick Lamar posturing morally as much as he has in recent months to be kind of collaborating with Cardi this deep deeply and unabashedly on these tracks. I don't think he's calling him his evil twin for no reason, but even that I feel like is giving Cardi too much credit, because I feel like even an evil twin version of Kendrick Lamar could give us a solid 16 on a track like this, and we're not even getting that. And look, not to single out Kendrick Lamar, obviously I expected more from him going into this project, but honestly, I don't know how he guest on this record brings a particularly great feature performance. I mean, Travis Scott brings quite a few guest performances to this record, and even what he offers, I feel like, is pretty average by his usual standards. I mean, all things considered, it truly is Swamp Izzo who sounds the most excited to be on this album. Every other appearance from every other person, even Cardi, much of the time, just comes across as repetitive, casual, low stakes, low energy, which, yeah, when those are the standards Cardi is setting for his own record, why wouldn't everybody else kind of follow suit? Okay,
damn,
I swear, there are some highlights on this record.
Finally.
There's Crank, which I feel like is a prime example of Cardi when he is at his best here, and giving us tracks that essentially sound like the rap equivalent to a chaotic horror movie soundtrack. And there's Like Weezy, which I enjoy quite a bit as well, and features this very prominent sample of Rich Kids Bend Over with its very bright, cheery, super sweet lead melodies, which let Cardi come at the track with a kind of happy-go-lucky, almost silly type of energy, especially with bars on here where he's going on about spitting on a bitch like Pac. He sounds absolutely just out of his mind on this song. There's also HBA, which is another moment in the track list where I feel like Cardi is most definitely channeling some kind of high, otherworldly energy over a hype instrumental where he's just purely operating off of intuition, a gut feeling, and that's it. And again, moments like these are where this album truly feels locked into its greatest strengths. The issue is, though, that is not where most of the album is at. As much of this record is unfocused, is sloppy, is inconsistent, rushed, thrown together, messily pieced together. Yeah, Cardi really managed to give us an album on this one that makes a record as bloated and as all over the place as Whole Lotta Red sound like it actually really truly had a point to it, which is why I'm feeling a strong 3 to a light 4 on.
How do y'all feel about this? Is this too low? Nah, this is too low. I told y'all he was gonna give it a 4. Didn't I tell y'all? I said 4 through 6. Maybe a low 7. But I knew he was gonna get. Well, that's too broad. But I said 4. I said 4 at first, bro. Dang.
This one. Transition. Have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it?
Nah, I know people are in the comments are cooking him, bro. Playboy Cardi is like a vampire, but instead of avoiding the sun, he avoids his. Somebody said, "Oh yeah, I could." Oh my god, y'all couldn't see. Someone said you gave it a 4 because you didn't want to disrespect the 5, but your ass in full chain Swamp Izzo.